Okay, so you should now have finished off all of the pickups. Each one of them should have their own empty game object called, which you can call whatever you like really, but I call mine anim holders. Each of those should have their own timeline, and just make sure that wrap mode is set to loop, okay, and it's associated with the right object there. And then in the project you can now just drag each object into the pickup prefabs in order to create a nice little prefab that you can then drag into your project. Now the pickup animations with the timeline on it, we no longer need this, so let's just delete that. And obviously when we go back to the, for example, the battery pickup, and we scrub through this, we can see that we're still getting the animations playing, so it's perfectly fine. We were using the other animation holder so that we could time everything perfectly. We knew exactly that they were all responding properly, and we could animate through it together so that we could see all the different items animating at the same time. Okay, it's a nice way to actually set up the project, and then you just break it out afterwards. Okay, so our pickups are good. You can leave those where they are at the moment if you want, or you can just delete those out. In the next section we are going to start placing these pickups in the best places, thinking about our initial game loop and what's going to work good. But for now we need to tell people a few of these kind of like buttons that you need to press on your keyboard. They already know that WASD is walking, but do they know run? Do they know? They already know to press E to pick up an object. Do they know to press right mouse button to actually to actually pick out their weapon? Do they know they have to press left mouse button to attack? So we need to give them some instructions. So back into 2D mode, where if I can get to my canvas, we're going to double click on canvas so that we can see it. Okay, so I'm going to switch the inventory menu panel off for a second, and we're going to create a new panel on the canvas, and I will call this one controls panel. I'm going to set the background color, the alpha, to 0, so it's completely transparent, and it's not a raycast object, so I can switch that off. On the controls panel I want to give it some UI and some text. I'm going to set the text to white. Okay, the font size, I might increase this a bit, so maybe about 25, and just call this controls, all uppercase. So it's a nice sort of title, and then we're going to drag this one up to the top, and because I always want it to appear at the top of the screen, for this particular one I'm going to change the anchor to the top of the screen. Okay, so now that will always appear there. Need some more text, so just ensure that I'm on controls panel, UI and text. Okay, this one is also going to be white. The font size probably not as big. Let's go with about 20, I think. And for this one we're now going to start writing out all of the controls. So for example, we might say AWSD, okay, and then we'll put, we can hardly see that, can we? Let's zoom in on this one. If we look over here, actually we'll put a colon and we'll say walking. AWSD or arrow keys, let's say that is walking. Now what I can see there is that this doesn't have enough space to display everything, so let's make this really big, and let's take our move tool and move this into a good position. So let's say about here, and let's just make sure that all of our text is centered. Okay, I think that looks good. So obviously AWSD or arrow keys is walking, and then we'll put mouse is looking around, or should we say turning actually? turning. Shift is running. Alright, or I might just put run. And then we want to say I for inventory menu. And then we want to say right mouse button to equip weapon, left mouse button use weapon, and then we will say E to pick up items, and then we will say F is flashlight, N is night vision. What else do we have? We have this. I want this to be F2 to call up this controls menu. Controls menu. We're going to have a save later in the game, so we're going to say S, save game, when in save zone. Okay, and we're going to be giving instructions to the player as well as we're going through the game. So we're going to get little pop-ups that says, if you want to save the game, go to this particular save zone. It's going to show them where to go. We also have O for options, which we'll be working on later. This is things where they can change the visual quality of the game. They can add shadows and fog and all sorts of stuff, just so that they can optimize the game for their systems. We may even be able to switch off sounds. Well, actually, we can do that in the options menu. That's perfectly fine. So for now, I think we've got our controls set. So if I just click somewhere else, this is what the controls look like. I think that's quite nice. If I think of any more, or if you think of any more, just add them to this controls menu. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to create a new script that you can attach to the canvas that actually switches this controls on and off by using the F2 key. I want you to go into the GUI where this says WASD, etc. I want you to change that so it says press F2 for controls. Okay. You may be able to look at the script, the scripts that you already have, in order to figure out how to do it. But if you can do it without looking at those, you're making really, really great progress.